3, 2, 1. And we are live. Wherever you are, whenever you are, thank you for joining the Design of Everyday People, where I talk to senior experts from all over the world and where you get to literally ask them anything. So again, get your typing fingers ready, and I'll try and weave in your questions into the conversation as we go. You can feel free to drop them if you're listening on LinkedIn, in the chat, and also on YouTube, of course. But let's start making this session as interactive as possible. For those who are joining, let me know where you're listening in from. Are you at work? Is it the end of your day? What's happening where you're listening to this? And without further ado, let me play that intro music. This is the Design of Everyday People.
It sound right, boy.
All right. So welcome to How to Build a Research Practice. Ask Me Anything. We always start with introductions, and let me go first here. I'm Chris, the founder of UX Playbook, but before that, a self-taught designer struggling to get into UX. And I spend most of my days helping designers navigate a fuzzy UX career from with UX Playbook, from building your first portfolio to leading your first design team. But that's enough about me. Today, I'm joined by Julian. I'm not going to butcher your middle and surname. I'm going to let you do the honors there, Julian. But Julian is the host of Finders to Builders, a podcast helping often the first or solo researcher building research practices from scratch. So if you're a designer looking to do that, then this is for you. And you occasionally find him on stage speaking about research all over the world. He's a senior product researcher at DuckDuckGo. So let's get Julian out here and see how he's doing. Hey, man, how's it going?
How are you?
I am good. What's the weather like in Barcelona?
It's sunny but cold already.
Okay,
Getting
cool.
chilly this time of the year.
Sunny but cold. Okay, because last time I saw you, it was pretty hot, and yeah, so it's a nice change, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the cold, though I have to say. But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, at least it's sunny. That's what I would say. Thanks for having me. My pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I know it's you know, you're running from a meeting, so you're probably like, oh shit, like, okay, let's jump on this. So that's good. That's good. One thing, Julian, I think I'm also again, your mic is maybe not connected. Do you want to choose that source again for me, real quick? I'll let you figure that out. While I just kind of flash the people on YouTube that's coming in. Then Alejandro, hey, how's it going? I also met Alejandro in Barcelona when I went. We have someone from Greece. Mia also says hello, Julian, which is nice. And Christopher, big fan here. Okay, so we have a stream of folks on the call. Julian, let me know when you're done. But before, like, you know, I could definitely introduce the topic that we're going to speak about, and then we can just dive in while you're fixing your mic. So let's do that. Yep.
I'll rejoin if you don't mind. Give me a sec.
Okay, no worries. Let me get Julian off stage while he just figures stuff out. Okay, so today's conversation, again, the title is How to Build a Research Practice, Ask Me Anything. And these conversations are recorded. So head to YouTube to watch a full episode. But let me introduce this topic, which is design can't really live without research. Yet most companies don't have a research practice. I mean, I know this because a bunch of startups that I was working for in the design team, it was like research was kind of like a secondary afterthought, or it was up to the designer to build this. And without research, I would say designers are really flying blind when they're creating products, right? This means designers often have surface level insights. They have lack of decision clarity, end up doing more iterations, not less, they're building the wrong thing in the first place. And ultimately, the thing that they make, the feature, the product might suffer from low adoption, from the lack of research. So it's not the happy ending that we all want. And that's why I brought Julian in to speak about how designers can build a research practice specifically, and his experience of doing that in multiple places he's been into. So let's bring Julian back on to see if that mic is working. If not, we'll continue. What's up?
How about now?
Yes, that's it. That's a good mic. Thank you for scrambling and helping us do that. Before we talk about, the things that we're here to talk about, like building a research practice, for the folks that don't know you, tell us about yourself and also tell us about finders to builders.
All right. So my name is Julian Della Mattia. I know he didn't venture into that. It's just one surname. It's just 2 words, no middle name. It's just one surname with 2 words, which is sometimes very inconvenient for plane tickets and addresses. And I've been a researcher for more than a decade now, and most of my experience has been as the first researcher or as one of the first one in the team, even the organization. So what I learned through my journey was to not only do the research or the craft itself, but how to build everything around and how to build all the cables and the pipes to make that work. And getting that research practice rolling and getting research touch different parts of the company and reach different parts of the company, getting people involved, and also scaling the impact of research, especially when you are the first one or you need to start planting the seed for a team. And I'm half Italian, half Argentine. I'm based in Barcelona. I've been here since COVID time. Before I was living in Berlin. I lived in Berlin for 4 years, and currently I'm a product researcher at DuckDuckGo, which is a larger setting. We have a larger research team. Finally, I chose this for a change, but this is the first time I'm in such a large team, and all my other experiences were in other contexts. And I had a consulting agency till last year where I would help companies with this and consult and act as a surrogate researcher. And as Chris also said, I host this podcast called Finders to Builders. You can find it also on Substack. It's a podcast/Substack because sometimes I write, not that often though. I should do more of that. But I do post or create some content about this experience or talk to people who've been there, and also people from other disciplines. Chris was on the show or this season too. So we bring folks from design, from product, and see how can we all get together and build products based on user insights.
Awesome. Yeah. So folks, if you want to check out that pod slash Substack or hosted on Substack, you can scan that QR code and I'll flash it throughout this and also at the end, so you can find it. But really, you can just search Finance to Builders Substack and you will find that. Okay, cool. So what's the difference in your experience from Berlin to Barcelona, and do you prefer it much more?
Okay. Can you frame your question more specifically? So you
Yeah,
mean
like
work-wise or life-wise?
both. Like, what's your, like, you can take that as vague as you want. As a researcher, I just want to see what's the thing that comes back.
All right. Okay. So I'm grateful to Berlin because that's why I started my career in research. Actually, my first role in tech was as a product manager. So I've been working as a PM or worked as a PM for 2 years, more or less. And then at some point I decided to switch to research. And that's where I started. I actually was interviewing for a PM role at a company, and what they wanted was a very researchy PM. So basically, when you read the job description, it was talking to customers and doing this and doing that. At some point, I went to that interview saying, well, I can probably nail this based on the job description, but I think what you're looking for is a researcher. And so that's how it started. I had this experience working at an agency too. It was more like a designers collective working with service designers. So that was how the transition happened. But then I landed that first great experience doing some stuff there and design experience and facilitation, and then I landed my first in-house job there. So I'm pretty grateful to the city. But yeah, Barcelona and Berlin have very different vibes. That they have some similarities because they're very creative cities. They have a lot of design, a lot of things going on. But Berlin is more hostile, I would say, in some sense. There's this Berlin is known for this Berlin personality, the Berliner Schnauzer, which is like a way of expressing themselves and a way of carrying themselves and so on. Here, I mean, we're next to the sea. We're like, the city is pretty chill. Weather is great. Food is fantastic. You have the mountains nearby. You have the sea. There's so much going on here. So I like it much, much more. Berlin is a big city that it doesn't feel that big because it's so spread out. And, with the division, you have some neighborhoods that they are their own little universe. So, and Barcelona is more compact. We have the hills in the back, and then you have the sea, and then so it's a bit more complicated. So people who've been to Barcelona or who live in other cities in the Mediterranean, I mean, I saw the Greek flag before, so you probably get what I mean. These southern cities have a different history also, and a different geography that kind of limits how the city feels and breathes and moves. And I would say, I don't know, I think Berlin was an experience for me to grow professionally and as a person, and I'm super thankful for that. I also met my wife there, so I'm also I have to be thankful. But I'm half Italian, half Argentinian, and Barcelona is full of Italians and full of Argentinians, so I feel like right at home here. And also the Spanish culture is like, feels like my aunt at some point. It's not my mom, it's not Argentina, it's not Italy, but it resembles quite a lot. So that's why I feel like this is my place. And then in terms of the companies, there are also interesting differences there. Barcelona has a lot of, I mean, both have international companies, but there are a lot of companies in Berlin that work for the German market, or the DACH market, which is Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And here is more also combining with Latin America. So we have the whole Spanish speaking world, which is 500 million people or even more. So it's like, we're quite a lot. You also have companies that have a lot of ties with France and Italy and Portugal. And we also have a lot of companies, especially American companies, that either pick one of these of the cities. So it could be Milan, could be Barcelona a bit more often, to be the southern hub for their operation. So we have like many companies here. We also have companies from Berlin who have office here, like N26. Get Your Guide at some point was here. So there were some correlation there. And yeah, it's slightly different. The vibe is different, but both are cool.
Very cool. And someone is living in Berlin is just saying, "Hey, so good to have a listener from Berlin. Nice. Okay, yeah, really like your description. All right, let's jump right in, man. The first thing I want to ask you is kind of just setting the context for folks. Like, what are some of these major steps and considerations when you think about building a research practice that designers, researchers, think people that are thinking about this, they need to go through? What are some of those key steps in your mind that we can help folks understand?
Well, the first thing I want to say, like right off the bat, about research practices, and there's a reason I use this wording. I'm very intentional because I am aware that researchers are rare, if you want to put it that way. Not every company has a researcher. Sometimes even if you're a designer watching this, maybe you are the only designer, and let alone also a researcher is like something that sounds like science fiction sometimes. So I'm being pretty mindful of how do we frame this, because in the end, the essence or the key or the core of it is the same. What we want is, we want to have a way of thinking, a way of collecting data, and a way of making sense of that data that can inform decisions, so we can make database or data driven decisions. So this could be at different levels in the organization, but I wanna start by saying, ideally you would hire a researcher the same way you would hire a designer to design, and everybody's a specialist, but it's not limited to that. And sometimes a research practice starts before a researcher is even close to a company. Some people say or argue that a research practice can start, so research starts in when you're in startup mode and doing product market fit. That's where you start doing research. That's where you start moving the wheel, if you want to put it that way. So when you think of a research practice, the first thing is there is some research going on. There is likely, unless you are building a company in the caves with no internet, which is probably not really common. I would like to hear that story though. Like a company built in the Himalayas in the middle of but unless you're doing that, there's usually some form of research going on. Could be higher quality, could be less quality, could be more polished, could be less polished. I'm not picky, or I'm not a purist in terms of methodology here, or like, oh, this is not good. There's a lot of discussion of what do we consider research, but I think any research or research like activity falls in this category. So probably you send a survey, if you use a B2B, if you have a B2B product, you probably reach out to customers, you have sales or you have support. There is some contact with users and the problem space and so on. So the idea with condensing this into research practices, putting it into a way that can make this effort scalable, reusable, and this information flows throughout the company. That's kind of in a nutshell, right? So we sometimes don't realize that we as designers, researchers, PMs, we are sitting on top. I would even dare say at any stage of a company. It doesn't necessarily have to be when the company is already mature and you have like a large team and so on. Even at like a nerdy stage, you're probably sitting on a wealth of knowledge that you need to, that it sometimes is untapped, and the key here is to start building. This is more like fossil fuels, right? You need to build all the things to dig out the petrol and all that. So that's pretty much what you do with the research practice. So you put the cranes and you put the drills and then you put the pipes and then you put this and then the refinery and then you have all that. That's pretty much what you need to build. So I like using that analogy, even though being a fan of fossil fuels is probably not that cool in 2025 anymore. But I think the analogy is pretty useful in this case. And that's how I always approach it, right? Like thinking, well, there's a lot we can, without even thinking of doing more research, which is then more like that's another step even. But like just to start, you probably have a lot in store.
Yeah. So it sounds to me that, well, I've lived this reality, right? Like if you work in startups, usually if it's like a very small team, the founder is getting hands-on. Literally everybody's getting hands-on. Everybody's trying to speak to the customer, or someone's doing some type of research, but it's just really, really messy. Is there like a step before we get the cranes in, before we sort of do all that stuff, and where we call it like the foundation? Like why are we doing research? What type of research are we doing? What's the goal of the research? How is that important to establish first when we think about, okay, we're ready for a more mature research practice because everybody's doing everything, but should we establish some foundation guardrails before we continue?
Well, without sounding like self-promotion, but I actually recorded an episode on something that I always recommend people to start with, and that's mapping. I'm a big fan of mapping things out. I think having a shared understanding, especially if you're a visual thinker, I am, so I try to do that as much as I can. But there's this episode, I don't remember the number, but if you go to like Spotify or Substack, where I talk about mapping the research that happens in your organization. So I would probably start there. As I said, there's research happening. There's some people talking to customers. There's some people are sending surveys. There's something going on. So go find out what's happening and then try to understand how it's happening, right?
Mm.
So people who are sending the surveys, how are they sending the surveys? What tool are they using? How do they send it? Do they use a CRM tool? Do they use Gmail? Do they incentivize people? What do they do with the results? All like try to map the end to end to understand what you need to build first, because there's so many building blocks to this that you need to start somewhere. So if you see that service is the things you do the most, well, you need to then figure out how to do surveys more effective, more efficient, and then you build the rest. Or if you see that there's a big hole for qualitative research and nobody's actually talking to customers in an organized way, maybe you sort out a database, and maybe you sort out or you figure out how to make this, how to share incentives or give incentives to the people you talk to, and all that. So I always recommend I mean, you have to do the footwork there and knock on, like you have to knock on a lot of doors, and you need to go around, but basically you need to go around the company and ask, hey, can you spend 10 minutes with me and tell me how you do this every time, or every quarter, or how often. And then from there you start, because that will give you an understanding of like, well, this is great or this is just horrible. Sometimes it's like, whoa, what is this monster of process that you're using? And then from there you start shaping things. That's how I would start first. Like this is a very like designing mindset, but you need to first understand I mean, designers and researchers, we are cousins, and we are probably two of the closest, in terms of mentality and thinking, two of the closest roles. We share part of that with product, or research and product also share that bit. But I think designers and researchers are very close with this. We need to understand the problem first, and then we can start, thinking of the solution space.
Yeah.
So we'll start there.
Gotcha. So, in your experience, okay, so mapping, understanding what you're working with in terms of what research are getting conducted, what's wrong, what's broken, what's going well, what's valuable, and then what's usually the logical next step? Do you find the biggest, hairiest problem, or do you find the smallest, quickest win? Like, how do you then start to think about laying the infrastructure?
Well, here you need to do a mix of both. I'm sorry if this is a very one thing researchers have, and we all researchers have in common, is that we tend to answer with gray answers. It's like it depends is one of the things that I will answer. So it depends, but what I'll say is like you need to mix both. So if you focus on the quick wins, that's great, but there are larger blocks in this building process that require several steps, and they seem daunting at first when you look at them. So, oh, I need to spend all this time here. So I recommend like chopping those big blocks into smaller pieces, into smaller chunks, and then mixing. So we have the same size. If you want to put it in effort, like the same type of effort invested in a quick win and in one of those building blocks. So you can build stuff that later ladders up, and that's these things do something or make up something larger later. So it's a combination of both. One thing is that, well, we can get one example. We can get a tool to organize incentives of participants, right? We just get one. I'm not gonna name any because they're not sponsoring this show, but you could.
God damn it,
If
guys!
you have-
Sponsor the show, and we'll mention your name. What's going on? Come on.
If you want to sponsor, if you're an incentive manager and want to sponsor this part of the show, you can drop us a message. Yeah, you can get one of those. That's a quick win. But if you want to build, let's say, a participant database, which also calls for tools, but this sounds like a big sale.
This is awesome. I would send this clip to like all the sponsors, like all the research tools out there.
We can voice out. If you use, there you go. You can dub that, and then you put the name of the sponsor that paid in the post production.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay.
No, but if you going back to the answer, if you want to build a participant database,
you probably need like several steps to get there. You need to get, first of all, approval of the tool, understand what happens with the data that's handling there, how you reach out to people, how you build a sign up fraud so people can sign up to that participant database and so on. So it's probably like 8 steps or 9 steps, where the other one is maybe 2. So if you only pick the ones that are like, yeah, I can do it right away, it doesn't get the effect. I always use this thing called, like, you need to, sometimes you just, it's grass, and sometimes it's like you just like plant the seeds and you need to water the sprouts till they give you, the actual fruit, right? So one thing is more like, yeah, just do it right away, quick wins, fast, we can deliver fast or change fast. The other one is more like, well, it needs time to build, and then you see the results later on.
Right. Someone just commented about my stainless steel cup, which is awesome. But actually, what I really wanted to say, Julian, is another person from YouTube said, "Hey, there's your DuckDuckGo cup." Said, "My follow-up is always depends on what." So actually, this is actually quite a good question in terms of where it depends, like quick win or big hairy problems. What are some of the attributes that you kind of like think, like, what does it depend on? Like, if I need to work on something first, like, are there things that you think, like, in your head, like, yes, it depends, here's the answer on why, like, or what I judge what it depends on?
I didn't get the question right.
Okay,
Can
cool.
you go again? Yeah.
Yes. So is there like a mental framework that you use to determine what needs to be worked on first, or in parallel, whether it's a big hairy problem or a quick win? Is there something that you're like, well, this is really urgent, or the CEO will really love this, or this would add the most value? What's the kind of thing? What does it depend on when you make that decision of like the first initial steps to work on the research practice, like the infrastructure?
Well, the first thing, or the first criteria, is which of these things will be the most impactful in terms of studies impacted or people using it. And then from there, that's the first criteria. And then from there, you use what I said about like big chunks and then smaller pieces.
Yeah.
So the first thing is that if your company is doing a lot of surveys, or is missing a lot of surveys, or whatever, something that you think is urgent and a lot of people could benefit from this and would use it. And I don't know, if you have, for example, huge appetite for unmoderated usability, just to move away from surveys. Like if you have a huge appetite for unmoderated usability testing at your company, and you see designers ask you, and you see PMs want you to do stuff and so on, and we don't have, well, probably that is one thing, because you already have a lot of requests and a lot of projects that will be impacted by that. So that's already set that as a prio. And when you have competing priors, then it goes back to this: how can you fit both levels of effort, right? Signing a tool can be straightforward, and then building something else, building a research repository maybe is larger, but building a repository will take you 6 months, so you better start now, and you do one step and then the other and then the other, right? So you need to combine both things that a lot of people can benefit from, and then from there you see it with both lenses, right? The quick wins, and what can I do, what baby step can I take today next to this quick win that will ladder up to a very impactful effort. I know it sounds, it's a bit tricky, because in the end it's like, why don't I pick like 3 quick wins and off we go? Because quick wins are quick wins. It's just like, they're usually small, that's why they're quick. Well, not necessarily, but that's usually the case. So you need to balance that, because otherwise the big rocks, you will never put them in place if you always prioritize the quick wins. So that's how we go about it. So focus on the stuff that will impact the largest quantity of studies, or the largest quantity of people, or that will create, depending also on what you want to achieve, on how the situation is in your company. That's why it depends. It's usually the go-to answer. If you need to create momentum for research, and you need to people to showcase why research is valuable in a particular context, not saying this is the case, but maybe getting a usability and moderated usability testing can get you there really fast, because you can then share. I don't know, we can use, does this show have any sponsors that we need to name?
No, we're good.
So there are a lot of tools out there that you know them already. So a lot of them have user in the name. So that you can use for moderated studies, and then you can get the results, and then you can share the output. You can share clips from different videos, and you can, I don't know, show a heat map or that, and then people say, oh yeah, we had this idea, and look, in the end this is what happened. And then you need to get started there. If in a different context, people don't need to be shown research, they know research is valuable, then you do something different. That's why it depends on so many things. And I know it's not that I don't want to give a definite answer, but in the end, it's like this. It's just like a decision tree that just branches out so widely, So that's another layer. So what's most impactful for more teams or for more projects in your particular context? And then from there, the quick wins and the baby steps, all the building blocks.
Yeah. I love your example of like moderated usability testing, because with those tools, you can show what the customers are saying and where they're kind of screwing up. And that could immediately affect some product decisions or bug fixes or something like that. That's like really tangible as an output, right? Like, here's the input of like the insight and the whatever failed task or whatever bugs that came on, and then here's the fix. So like that's something that a lot of folks will just get, right? So that's a great example. We had a question come up again from YouTube, and feel free to, if you're not sponsoring and we mention you, feel free to send me a message and we'll figure something out. But top 5 tools for user research or you use for research. Do you have your favorites?
No.
That you're like, no, you're pretty agnostic with tools.
I'm very agnostic, yeah. Okay. And also I don't use Notion, so that's one thing. I'm not saying it's not useful, but someone said besides Notion. It's like, no, I don't use Notion. Sorry to sorry to disappoint you. But yeah, I don't have any favorites. I do think you need one tool for recruitment, so something that's participant management. You need a tool for unmoderated usability testing with video and without video, depending on what you choose. You can have 2 if you have budget. If not, you can prioritize one based on. I always like the one without video. I prefer. Then you probably need one for if you well, doesn't necessarily have to be a tool, but if you, depending also on the context, you can source participants from. There are some platforms that specialize in getting users for your interviews. Oh
God, this is so good.
And then another one for repositories, definitely. You can use Notion there since that it came up. I don't use it particularly, but I think it's a good tool that you can use. And then from there, I think you are good to start, and then you can add more stuff to that. Now, if you want to have one, there's some stuff that you can use for like AI synthesis for your interviews. If you do interviews, you can get the AI to check out the transcripts and sort stuff out for you, or at least do the heavy lifting. Not fully do it for you, but do the heavy lifting. You can have stuff for like FigJam or Miro to just like play around. So I don't have any favorites, but those are definitely the categories: participant recruitment, one, unmoderated testing, platform for or agency or whatever to get users, especially if you work in a very hard to get context, or especially if you're in B2B, these platforms can help you out. Then a repository tool, and then I would even say something like FigJam or Miro is always useful. So yeah, and then you can, on top of that, you can get creative. You can have as much fun as your budget allows. It's like if you have a large budget, like far away, you can have like so many things. I don't include anything for surveys, and I do that on purpose because usually in companies research service is one of the things a lot of teams do before the researcher joins. So usability testing is not something common if you don't have designers or researchers. But service marketing is definitely sending surveys. So you probably have like Survey Monkey or Typeform or whatever.
Mhm.
You probably have it in the company, right? So that's why you don't include it in the list. But if it's not the case, you can include that one to the toolkit.
So funny. This someone listening, it's like, you won't name the tools. No, we won't. No, I mean, Julian did just name the tools, but there are so many out there. It's like new tools like left and right, right? So but he did give you the categories, which, and then you can put your user or researcher brain on and kind of scour around, because again, a lot out there, especially with AI synthesis tools these days.
Yeah, it's not that I don't want to name the tools. I mean, the sponsorship thing is a joke. Well, not a joke, depends. But no, it is a joke.
It's a joke, not a joke, really. Cool.
I mean, it's not a joke if you don't want. I mean, it's not a joke if people come. But what I mean here is that, yeah, I mean, I work now. I'm back in house. I have an in house job, but before that, I had an agency, and I work with many companies, and some companies had tools already. So I became really name agnostic. It's not about naming. You can name Maze, Listener, Askable, whatever you want. There are like a lot of tools out there. Use usertesting.com, UX Tweak, whatever. You can. It's not about naming.
Optimal, Tally, yeah. There's just so many. Yeah.
There's so many, so many. And then you can find which one you prefer. But in the end, I became really agnostic with, yeah, this one has this and the other one has that. But sometimes this one's expensive and the other one is cheaper. The one offers, I don't know, pay per credits. The other one has a set number of credits. You know, I became so like, well, what do I use in this context, and which tool is the most suitable for this? Also, to be clear, I did a lot of tooling consulting also in the past. Also part of this building the practice role. So in the end, I became very detached from names. The important thing is never, like, tools are never the thing. You know, the important thing is like, you know, what you need to know what you need and how to use. Sorry, let me go again. You need to know what you need and what's the most suitable option for your particular context. And overall, even going like broader than this, tools are never the answer. Now, you need to know the craft and the needs and what you want to achieve, and then the tool is just a tool. Same with Figma. You know, I don't want to venture into the design world, but it's like, you don't need to learn Figma. You need to learn design, and then you can use Figma or a whiteboard or a piece of paper. You know, if you know the fundamentals, that's what's going to get you there. So yeah, that's my answer. My really long-winded answer on tools.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think we need to hear it, because we do have a tool obsession, especially designers working in tech. Everything is about the new tool, right? So that's good that you said that. One thing I wanted to ask about infrastructure, which is, you know, you've been at a bunch of different companies, you know, and you've consulted and stuff like that. Are there things that are very key in building a robust infrastructure that you've done almost every single time at every single company that you've been at? Because that would be amazing if we can just kind of like fast track. Okay, these are really some high impact stuff that every infrastructure needs.
So when I think of infrastructure, there are two ways or the two levels that I like thinking about it. This is just like something I made up, but it's my way of dividing into little boxes. So there's one operation that is like, there's one type of infrastructure that's more operational, so that enables research to happen and enables more research to happen. And then there's another part, and I like putting it into another or a different category, which is the knowledge operations. So these are two very distinct sets. I would say in terms of the more operational bit, like more about what enables research to happen, I would say tooling is one thing that you always do, like setting up the toolkit, and then definitely setting a way that's scalable, that's efficient, and that's accessible, and it's also budget efficient, matching the company's needs for teams to get access to customers. This could be through unmoderated testing or through moderated testing. So not just like, hey, let's see if customer support finds us 5 people to talk to. It's more like, okay, how do we reach out with autonomy, with independence from other teams, from within the UX team, the design team, or whatever your structure is. From there, how can we have autonomy on talking to folks, and how can we do it in a scalable way that also is respectful of their privacy, is respectful of the time by giving them incentives. So setting that up, that includes having a budget for recruitment, having a tool, creating a database, using a CRM tool, being mindful of GDPR and where you store the data and all that. So that whole thing, I probably build it every single time. That's probably the most, especially for companies that are setting stuff from scratch. Usually that's one of the key things. Toolkit is another one. In some cases, especially in those that have a mixed model, I don't like using the word democratization because what is that word anyway? Democratization, yeah. Before it's a dictatorship of research. What is that?
Yeah, exactly.
So no, it's like more like if you think of this empowering other roles in conducting research, which I think in the end, the more people conduct research at different levels, the better off we are. Researchers we are specialists in research. Yeah, we can do complex research, but why can't a designer do other stuff? I know I would not expect a designer to wrestle with Figma with or design with doing a workshop, doing the research. Like, I mean, unless they're superhumans, it's tough. So you like, they can do some research, and you as designers, you can do a lot of stuff. So, but why don't do it, right? I don't think that research should be just doing, taking that off your plate. So it's more about empowering. So when you have all these roles, also PMs can do some stuff. When you have all those roles involved in research, you want to have a way of setting standards and guardrails so that happens the best way possible, and you reduce bias. You put this in a way that's then reusable for the rest of the company. That knowledge builds. So that's also something that you can build a little program, and you can build resources and trainings and so on, so you can enable research or conducting research throughout the company, across the company. It's maybe not open to everybody at the beginning. I mean, I never heard, there's always this argument like, well, Karen from accounting shouldn't be conducting research. I never heard Karen from accounting asking for research though, but it's usually the same folks in the product org. It's like, yeah, can I talk to customers? But anyway,
if you're called Karen and you work in accounting and you're listening to this, drop if you've ever done research.
Please, Karen, if you want, please. I mean, please do. I mean, I would be happy to help you out. I'm here to help you anyway. Also, accounting is bad. It's really hard. I mean, I have a background. I studied economics. Well, actually, international business and international economics. That's my degree, and we had like accounting in the first year. That was a nightmare. Anyway,
Tangent. Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, every time I see a spreadsheet, I just cry in fear. So that's one part, and then the other part is the knowledge operations, and this is more about how can we then take that nuggets of research and all that output that we got, maybe as designers or as researchers, maybe other people in the company, how can we connect it and triangulate it and ensure that that's consumable and that's reusable in time and stored in a place that people can access. So that whole part. There's a really, really good book by Jake Bernhardt called Stop Wasting Research. I had him on the show. It's one of the last episodes. He's great, and his writing is great, and you can take stuff for whatever level your company's at. So if you are an enterprise with 3,000 employees, or if you're a startup with 50, you can still take some of those strategies. But also the knowledge infrastructure is something that I tend to build. Well, not anymore, but I used to do that in the past. So that's another leg. So tools, training programs for other folks, recruitment and user or participant management, if you want, and then knowledge management. Those would be the 4 pillars, I would say.
Awesome. Okay, so there's a lot of questions that came in. So guys, if like from what we spoke about, please ping us and drop your questions in the comment. I'm just going to scroll this, but there's a lots of stuff. And Rex Johnson is very, very keen, and I think he's asked the same question a bunch of times. So Rex, we're going to answer your question now. Thank you for being patient with us. There was just no good time to throw that in there, but I think I'm going to come to this question here. I'll flash it on screen and I'll try and read that out. Okay, hold on 1 second, because is this a
I think he started before. I think he started before at some point.
Yes. Okay, cool. Starting freelancing. Hey, Rex. I'm confused about strategy, which is said to be part of research. So I'm confused as different definitions of it. And how do you define that? What is your step-by-step process for strategy? How do you do strategy?
Well, that's a very. Let's see the follow-up, because he asked again.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he say, can you expand a little on how that you do research workshops, maybe what they call strategy workshops, and what these companies call strategy to do ahead? I don't know if this is what you mean with this, but I think there's been quite a conversation with research guiding the strategy and research being strategic. And there's this thing, it's pretty common online if you go to LinkedIn or if you see like some podcasts talking about it. And there's this rebranding of research should be doing strategy, as if one decision, I mean, they only mean like large decisions. So like things like, yeah, research should be involved in where the company should go in 5 years. Well, research should be involved in every decision if possible. Researchers, not depends how many researchers you got and how you want to play that. I don't agree with this idea that there are some first level decisions and second level decisions in terms of strategy. I think in the end they're all connected. They're like OKRs at some point. This here also connects to here. You have to be able to go up and down in the thing, in this ladder. But that's what I got from this question. I don't know. This is research should inform strategy. Yes, but strategy exists at different levels. One is design strategy, one is product strategy, research strategy. You have different things. Your research strategy might be lined up to your research, to the design strategy, and then this is only part of the company strategy, because I don't know how, maybe in some cases you could connect it, but how the sales strategy connect to other parts. It starts to get complicated. So I don't know exactly if I'm answering your question, but
yeah, I would go back to Rex and ask him like, well, you're freelancing. I'm assuming you're working with a client and they're saying, can you help me with this strategy process? And then you would ideally ask him, well, what's the dream outcome of this workshop? Why a workshop? What do you want to get out of it? And a bunch of questions around the scope of what they define this workshop as. Because again, like in working in tech, it is like the terminology and being aligned on what we call this makes a lot of difference. And if you don't know what they mean, how you're supposed to like brainstorm a workshop and then involve research and strategy together. So like, again, I think it's just more of an approach problem where you're like, okay, I have a client, he's asking for this. What is he actually asking for? How do I phrase it in a way that doesn't make me look like I'm inexperienced, for example, right? So you just need to ask him a bunch of, again, researcher hat on and be like, what the hell do you actually want to do with this? And then we can like call it whatever you want, right? Call it I don't know, a one-on-one workshop, lightning session, whatever you want to call it, but define the boundaries and outcomes, and then you can kind of go from there. I also didn't answer the question, but I think that's what he's stuck on. And he did sort of clarify. It's often mixed up terminology that different people say different things. So it's confusing. Yeah, well, that's fine. But if you're in the context of like closing this gig or working with this client, then it's your job to define the terminology because he wants to prepare for a workshop, as he's saying. So exactly. So, but you don't know what workshop you're preparing for, right? You can't just prepare a workshop based on things you might have heard from one person or things you've heard on the internet. You need to really think about what the hell is going on here. Hope that helps. And yeah, if you need to clarify any of the things I said, let me know. Okay. Another question from Lena says, one of the main reasons companies don't want to do user research is time and budget. You probably get this a lot, Julian. What are the solutions in that case? What are the best practices for, I guess, pushing back on the we don't have time, we don't have money, we don't have budget?
Yeah, that's a classic, and yeah, it sucks when it happens, but it has a very easy solution if you want. So, well, it's not easy; it's straightforward, and things are never easy, but it is straightforward, and that is calculating. So apparently, many companies, or many companies now, but many leaders who push back on this at different levels, could be at a team level, could be at a larger level. So there are two things. On one hand, maybe they have some deadlines and that they have to meet, and the important thing is, like, this is also how other teams are measured. So depending on the company, a product team can be measured if they ship A or B, and not if A or B rolling and live give you the outcome that you want. So that's output versus outcome. So it happens still in some organizations, like, well, deliver this feature and this feature and this feature. It doesn't matter then if this drive retention, if this drive conversion or whatever. So that's still happening, or some, maybe there's a promise there. So that's part of the reasoning. It's like, well, I don't care if this is right, I care that this is done. And the research is not necessarily against research. They are dealing with a different game altogether, and it's like, well, just do it. I do this, and then in 6 months we'll see. So that's one part. And then the other part is that there seems to be less, there seems to be more intention to rework stuff while it's live, without seeing how costly and how much waste this produces before doing it before. Because it's a different feeling, right? If we go into the psychology of that, it's like, well, the feature is shipped, we are just reworking stuff that's there, so maybe that changes, right? But if you say, well, we need to invest 3 weeks, and it's like, no, we cannot wait 3 weeks, and we cannot waste this money. And maybe the cost of the research, in terms of the person conducting the research and incentives and so on, say, let's put a number, 10K, re-exaggerating. But then, if you build the wrong thing, or you build the thing the wrong way, you need to rework that and pull, and maybe doing all that is probably, I don't know, 60K, right? And that's the value. So there's this dissonance between, like, well, I just don't want to do it now, and I would rather do it later. But and a strategy that I always use is like, well, if you do this wrong, this is how much it can cost you to develop that again, or to fix what you broke. It will take you this amount of time. It will take you this amount of money. What do we do, right? And I always try to find a compromise. Like, okay, we don't have time to do research. Well, why? Because we have X amount of time. How much time are you willing to spend? And then from there, anything that you can use to reduce the risk will start that conversation, and we'll get that conversation going. Think of a target, right? When you're playing darts, and if you have no research, it's basically doing this and throwing the dart. If you do a bit of research, it's doing this and throwing the dart. If you do more research, is this. If you do a lot of research, is this. Think of that way, right? So if you only have this, it's still better than this. So that's how you can start that case, or you can start a conversation. Like, let's do something with the resources we have. And then once you start proving that this works, and this the risk stuff, and this can help you get directional feedback or directional signal, this will get you more and more and more. And people will start to see, well, I'm not willing to waste 80K on this if this costs 5, and I have to wait 2 weeks. It's not worth it. So that's how you start going. There's one question here
About culture.
Yeah.
So I'll read it. I think answered again. People are very enthusiastic about their questions. So let me read it. I think this one is the best one. When you shifted places, when you moved from place to place, Julian, culture
Mhm.
changed. So, like, how do you learn quickly about the change in cultural contexts and nuances to take care of it as people living there have this integrated contrast? So, how did you adapt from Berlin to Barcelona, or even it could be different companies as well? Like,
Hmm.
how do you kind of like get what's happening, cultural context, nuances, all of that stuff?
Okay, this is a really good question. I think we can think of this in two buckets. One is the work bucket, if you want, which maybe is interesting, and the other one is a personal bucket. The personal one, I would say, I grew up in a bilingual home and also lived in Italy as a kid. So part of my life, I was born in Argentina, moved when I was a kid, then moved back when I was an early teenager, and then went back to Europe, and I went to eat. So I moved around a lot. So at some point, it was really easy for me to adapt and to kind of like live and breathe to cultures. If you are part of this context, I think it helps. Also, truth be told, I haven't lived in a country where the culture is completely different to mine at some point. I mean, I am a Westerner, so, and I lived in Western countries, and yeah, the culture is different in Berlin, but it's different, that they go eat dinner early and they eat, I don't know, currywurst, for example, but it's not dramatically different. So there are some things that you can pick up. I think the most important thing in that case is speaking the local language. I would say I learned German when I was in Germany, and here, well, I'm picking up some Catalan, but here, because Barcelona is bilingual, so half of like people speak both Castilian or Spanish and Catalan. So I kind of understand the cultural nuances here because it's also one of my mother tongues. And in Germany, I took the time to learn German, and I could, pick up some of the stuff when I was there by speaking the language. So I would say the language is one key thing. But also, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't live somewhere completely different. So I was not, even though I was, of course, I wanted to go somewhere different. It's not as different as if I moved to Japan, maybe, or something like that. So yeah, and then on the work wise, I think that's different. And at some point, and this comes with seniority, you know how to navigate onboarding really quickly the more senior you get. So it's like, well, I join a place, okay, I need to talk to people to understand this and that. How are the decisions made here? How do we plan stuff? How do we get things done? Why haven't we tried this? What are the blockers here? What have we tried? What haven't we tried? And you navigate that in your onboarding, and the senior you get, the faster you get to asking those questions to the right people, and then the least concern you. I say, well, am I bothering the VP of product here? You just like reach out to them and say, hey, can we have a quick coffee, 15 minutes? And you ask a million questions, and then you get started. So that's pretty much how it goes. So when I was starting, I was more like, well, maybe through onboarding, and I work with one team, and then I go with, and that would take me, I don't know, 6 months to understand the full corporate context. Where when I especially doing freelance or with my consulting time, I had to really understand the situation really quickly. So in 2 calls, I could already have not a full grasp, because of course not, but like a good understanding of how they play the game. But that comes with experience and with time, I guess. I don't know if you were asking the work dimension or the person. I hope I answered both.
Yeah, the follow up was for me, different projects have different countries. Okay, so people, clients, or colleagues from different countries. So adapt it to cultural
Oh, okay.
context and get nuances, get like it's difficult, right?
Oh, you mean for conducting research? I think that's
Let's
what
say
this
so.
question was
Yep.
about.
Yep.
Yeah, that's trickier. But again, it comes to language. One of the big things here in Europe, and I mean, some companies do it, but some others, they struggle to do that, is that they try to interview everybody in English. So it's like, yeah, we're a company in Hungary and we talk to everybody in English. It's like, well, you talk to the Hungarians in Hungarian, you talk to the Polish in Polish. You can you can, because not everybody speaks. I mean, I would say there are some countries that have a really good level of English: the Netherlands, the Danes, the Swedish. Also, if you could interview them in the local language, it's even better because they are more like closer to their feelings and their soul. But there are some countries where it makes in Germany it made a world of difference interviewing in German versus interviewing in English. So the insights that we would get were abysmally different. So I would say language has a lot to do with that. If you have the possibility to maybe source or work with a translator or a localizer or a dedicated agency to do that, that would be great. I always bet on local languages for research, especially if you want to assess feelings, if you want to see how people behave or act, because in the end, uh, unless you are really embedded in language, I mean, I would say 90% of my career has been in English, so I feel like it's my work language, and I think differently in English than I think in Italian or in Spanish. So if you ask me about work, I can probably answer much better in English. But if you ask me about something where I might have some feelings involved, or I want to have like something that you want to know my thinking in a different way, more personal, you have to interview me in one of my languages, right? So and that happens everywhere in the world, you know.
Mm.
Um,
Mm. Oh, actually, wait. They did say something. Oh, clients. Okay, so let's just like that. That was great anyway. Like, hey, if you're trying to get people or users or customers or research participants, but what happens with cultural context with clients? Let's just say you have Korean and Japanese clients where it's like wildly different. What would be your kind of approach to kind of like figuring that out?
that's I don't have experience that broad. So again,
Mm,
I go back to the Germany answer. Most of my Now I live in Europe. Most of my consulting work has been in Europe and westwards. I'm
mm,
from the New World. I'm from the Americas. I'm half European. My European side is weaker, I would say, in my soul. But I'm from the Americas, so I would say 60 to 70% of my client base were in the Americas. So US, Canada, Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, had some Chile, had some. So I didn't have to. I mean, I there were some like very little differences. So South American cultures were closer to me in terms of mindset. I like played by heart there. American cultures, I work for an American company now. Also did in the past. It was not so hard. And European companies, like their nuances. Um, you can probably see, you can probably like gauge how a company or a team approaches work by how they structure meetings and how do they structure the communication. And probably again in the first meeting you can probably get a lot of this. So just to give some examples here, I'm limiting my world to this because I would lie if I told this like, well, I help people in Middle East or in Thailand. I have no idea. You can follow Ruby Pryor, who's also a friend of ours, who she creates a lot of stuff about cross-cultural research and so on, and she has clients also in different parts of the world. So she probably has better answer than me. I kind of like my experience kind of finishes there where the Mediterranean ends. Um, so, but some nuances, for example, in working with the French in the first meeting, you would see that people will have a flat hierarchy and people would argue and they would be very vocal about something that they don't agree with, and you will feel like they're rioting or they're like complaining a lot, but in the end they're getting alignment. That's how they do it. It takes you two meetings to gauge this. The first one is what's happening, and then the second one you see, oh, why is this guy like kind of saying this to the I don't know, CPO, who she's there chilling, and she's there, and the guy's like 5 levels below her, and he's this happens, you know. Some of the cultures are more structured. Germans are more structured. You want to have an agenda. You need to have a plan. Probably like times are like longer. I need to have different approvals. Still very hierarchical. Um, Spaniards are very fast in my experience. Italians are very resourceful. So they will be very try to make the most out of what they got. So there are different vibes, but the difference is you can tell once you're there in the field, probably in 1-2 meetings. Observe how they interact, observe how they make decisions, observe how they treat you, how they treat each other, and how they treat you. If that's how you are interacting with them, and also like be mindful of the written communication styles and so on. That can help.
Yeah. Okay, let's take one more and we'll get off the track of sort of the cultural thing. I think this one, just kind of like a broad, general, what are some best practices for conductive, oh wait, let's start again. What are some best practices for conducting effective informal interviews?
Maybe we can clarify a bit more. What's informal interview? That I just interview in shorts and Barcelona shirt. So that I interview like what's informal exactly, because
Let
my
me,
feeling of
yeah.
informal could be something different to what they mean, and this answer could go like
Okay, so let's define it. Like, how do you define informal interviews if you have a definition?
um
Shorts and t-shirt?
yeah, all everybody drunk at the bar
Pretty
interviewing
informal,
folks.
pretty
Yeah,
informal, yeah.
if you can use this app drunk, then it means usability is great. Well, that's not. No. That's not a good practice. Don't do that. Um,
Right.
I don't know. Informal interview for me sounds like unstructured interviews, but probably
Yeah.
that's. I don't know if that's what they mean. So like, you just get together with a very broad agenda in mind. Hey, Hey, Chris, can you tell me about the last time you purchased something online? And then from there, you can go from there to infinity, right? That's what I would imagine as an informal. This is an informal interview.
Right.
No, this is a very formal interview. We're two very formal people, so no, this doesn't qualify.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the person means unstructured interview. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
So
it could even mean like going to like a mall to like show people something, right? Like guerrilla testing, like whatever, right? Like it could be some kind of, on the ground, like, hey, what's up, without so many constraints.
I haven't done that in a million years. Literally, like just
Just
hey,
turn
let's
up.
go here. Yeah, can you try my app? It's like, I don't know, calling the cops. I don't. Yeah, I haven't done that in a while. So I'll go with my answer first because
Sure.
I want to give an answer. So instead of saying, yeah, I have no idea, I haven't done that since, I don't know, 2014, which is my actual answer. I haven't done this like guerrilla stuff in such a long time. I go with the first one. I think active listening is key to any interview, especially if you don't have a guide. And this is more onto into the research craft part, but it's more, hey, if you're talking, I have some prompts and some ideas of where I want to get, more or less. If, of course, I'm not going to ask you about like random stuff, but I start with one prompt. Now prompts so weird now in the age of AI prompts, so I'm gonna change my wording here with one question. So I'll start with a question like, tell me about the last time you whatever, and then from what you tell me, I'll start digging deeper. I'll ask follow-up questions, but I have to be paying attention to you, right? It's not just part of the problem when you have a very closed interview, guys. Like you're thinking of the next question instead of thinking of the answer. So it's like, hey, tell me about the last time you did whatever, and then I go here, and it's like, oh, he finished. Great. How do you feel about blah blah blah? And it's not connected. So if you tell me about the last time you went to the gym, or well, and oh, what happened there? Why didn't you finish your routine? And it's well, I was tired. And say, are you always tired? He said, yeah, I have work and I don't have much time. So whatever, blah, blah. And he said, oh, you don't have much time. Then you see like this person has less time. So this can inform how you then maybe design an app or whatever. So, but you start somewhere and then you start navigating that informally. And the key is to have active listening. So listen to the person has to say. And then from what they tell you, you ask precise follow-ups that make sense, but you have to listen to them. So that's my tip. And the other one, informal, I have no idea. The other informal on the streets, I'm sorry for that.
All good, all good. Someone says usability testing crawl.
Oh, we can do that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, all right, okay. Literally last question. I'm sorry, Julian, but the chat is blowing up today, and
Thank
usually
you.
it doesn't blow up like this. So let's go back to Rex. Super small question, as it's a super small question, but how do you build rapport in the first 10 to 20 seconds? I struggle with that kind of set the tone call, be it a workshop or user testing or interviews. How do you build rapport immediately at the beginning so everybody's chill?
I think it's probably longer than 20 seconds. So you have a first impression in the first 5, so that's even shorter. And then you probably have just 2 minutes to warm up. If you haven't managed to get it going, get the conversation flowing in the first couple of minutes, that will set the tone for the rest of the hour, so to say. It's not 10, 20 seconds because that's not even a sentence. You don't even finish saying hello and it's like it's done. So first impression is really short, but then it's more about the report. In the first couple of minutes, I try to tell them about, or briefing them about the session, what's going to happen, and tell them a little bit of what we're going to do, and then ask them one question, and then from there I might, depends if I'm doing it remotely or in person, I might use a remark or something that I try to be chill about it, and I try to improvise, but something that could be that they can relate to. So it's not like they don't feel like I'm onto them. You know what I mean? It's like, well, where are you based? Maybe there's something, if they say, if I know where they're based, maybe I say, oh, I see you're living in Ho Chi Minh City. Great place. I see you live in Hanoi. Great coffee, whatever. And then I've been there with my wife in honeymoon. Great. And then, oh, cool, great. Where? Blah blah blah. And then off you go. I don't lie. I haven't been honeymoon everywhere. I always use the same, right?
Honeymoon line works every time.
Honeymoon, yeah. Where do you live? Albuquerque. So, I went there on honeymoon with my wife. It's like no one is gonna believe that ever. Yeah, try to find something that they can relate to, and then try to be chill and try to smile and use a friendly tone of voice, and also don't bombard them with admin info. It's like, because you're not. I've seen other researchers do this, like today we're going to talk about 60 minutes and we're going to discuss this and that. Every answer is valid. They're not right or wrong. So don't do that spiel. Just hint at that, but don't do the spiel because it freaks people out. Tell them what you need to tell them. It's like, if you want to record a session, whatever, you do that. Explain that. I'm not saying that, but don't be a robot and do a whole blah, 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 blah. Try to be chill about it. Say, hey, have you ever participated in other interviews before? Yeah, cool. How did you find them? Did you like them? And then you can talk about the weather. There are different ways that you can do that, but take the first 2-3 minutes to do that, not 10-20 seconds. But be creative, but also be realistic, as I said. No honeymoons in
bumfuck nowhere.
No.
I would just want to add to that. Yeah, I think this is actually what you said was really good. Be chill and be relatable. And where I learned this was small talk in client workshops, when we would go to a client's office and either we're working on a project with them or we are about to basically conduct a workshop to sell them a project that we're working on, right? But we always start with, even you can even do this in meetings, start with small talk, just have a chat, just be a human and just ask them about their day or whatever, right? Something will come up, but think about it as just small talk, get to know you, all right, and then get down to business. Because it is really weird if you don't know a person really well, that you just get down to business straight away. You usually have to have a little chat, and it just makes everybody just way more comfortable in whatever environment. and it definitely sort of disarms people if you don't know them already, right? So use that in your workshops, your interviews, even meetings. Dude, Julian, you've been awesome, and thank you for sticking around longer than you needed to and that we allotted time for. So appreciate that. Before we let you go, I do want to have you speak about Finance to Builders and what we can expect, just as a plug and as a thank you from my end. So, but yeah, but thank you for joining, dude.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I had a blast. Yeah, actually, like time like flew. Really, it's like I haven't noticed that it's already almost 20 past. So yeah, Finders to Builders is a podcast that unfortunately is finishing last year in the fifth. Oh, I forgot how to say this in English, but it's the number 50. Yeah, I don't know how to say the 50th. I think it should be saying like that. It's wrapping up at that. We're still in the 35, so there's still plenty of stuff to go. This podcast and this whole little universe is all about being the first researcher, the sort of researcher, and building a practice. You have tips there. You have I talk about some of my experience. I also interview guests. So it's a kind of like a mixed podcast. And I will then move to, when I said it's finishing, just the podcast is wrapping up, but the blog will continue. So if you subscribe to the Substack, you can probably get some articles here and there. And it's all about that. I also, if you want, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I also post almost daily and share some of the nuggets here and there of what I experience and what I learned being the first researcher. So yeah, that's pretty much the thing. I'm also like doing probably a final talk about Finders to Builders in some conferences, one in Berlin and one in Prague this year. And then, I mean, there are more things to come, but I'm not ready to announce them yet. We can do another one, Chris, and I can present the new content stuff.
Sounds awesome. So guys, if you want to check out Finance to Builders, it's like because you've done a bunch of episodes already, so it's like a repository of people wanting to kind of think about building and executing their research practice. And we have a lot of folks that says, thank you, Chris and Julian, this was an amazing session. Rex says, where can we find your LinkedIn? It's somewhere in the links down below. And either if you're on YouTube, you can find them. Rex, I think you're on LinkedIn. You can just click on the event title. Julian's name is tagged. He's under it. So you'll find him in the event description. So just go follow him there. But again, man, thank you so much. I want to take you off stage while I wrap this up, but feel free to drop off. I know you've got a trip coming on, and we should probably talk about that soon. But I won't take any of your time more today. But let's have a chat a different time, and we can kind of organize, trips in Asia, which is fun.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks, Chris, for having me. My pleasure, as always. Thanks,
right,
everybody,
man,
for joining, too. See you next time.
See you, dude. Thank you. All right. Again, guys, Finance to Builders, scan the QR code for following Julian's Substack. And watch all the previous episodes for how to build a research practice. He interviews guests as well on there. So you'll have a lot of other product design and research folks that you sort of sit in the room as a fly and listen to their conversation. But before I go, I always want to tell you about the next thing we got lined up. Funny that we actually spoke about Notion today, because the next LinkedIn Live is December the 17th with Jenny, and she is a certified Notion expert and designer and consultant, and she's going to teach us how to organize our work in Notion. We'll be speaking about establishing your structure, collaborating with others, and finally getting the work that we put into Notion actually done, and so much more. So if you are a fan of Notion, which I am actually, I use it every day. I'm using it now, in fact. Then check out the event and don't miss when it's coming out by scanning that QR code, or you can actually head to live.uxplaybook.org to sign up, and you'll only get notifications about the live. And again, it's on LinkedIn and YouTube, and it's also recorded. Lots of thank yous. Hopefully this was really a fun session. I'm trying to make it more interactive. So, I love how you guys just followed up. So it feels a little bit more real time. And that kind of structure also is quite fun for me. Yeah, so appreciate that, guys. And lively chat is always nice. It seems like because I did it a bit later, people are a bit more lively versus really early in the US, which I know a lot of folks are tuning in from. But anyway, thank you so much. And, go subscribe, go click all the buttons. And here again, live.uxplaybook.org for the next live December 17th about how to organize your work in Notion. So until next time, I will see you. Bye. This is the design of everyday people.
It sound right, boy.
This is the design of everyday people.
It sound right, boy.